Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman KnightFall issue 1, Scott Snyder and Cale Higgins co-writing, with Javier Fernandez on the art. And given the amount of dialogue, I'm going to say right now that Scott Snyder just plotted this and Cale Higgins did the script, because I don't think the dialogue is too heavy. So
yeah,
that's my guess. So we weren't really sure exactly how this was going to tackle this, in the sense that I was like, it was just going to tell the story of KnightFall, but with the different elements. And that is not what happens here. Basically, it recaps what KnightFall's supposed to be in about 2 pages, and then says, no, but here's the extra thing that happened at the end that changed it. And we actually jump 30 years later to see the world where Azrael stuck around. You know, Jean Paul stuck around as the Batman of Gotham City, and what that's become. And then just tells a story in that world. So.
Yep. And so he becomes Saint Batman. And what does that mean for Gotham going forward? And everything's changed.
Mm-hmm. He basically burns down the city and then gets it rebuilt because he wants to shape it in his image. And
hey man, 2019 was good to Azrael and John Paul. Between Curse of the White Knight and Justice League Odyssey and now this, like, but yeah, the drive to be Batman also drives him insane, which is what we can say is a thing that happens to people that aren't named Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, well, he has to take Venom to keep his strength up, so he's become addicted to that. He's getting sicker and sicker. So Jean-Paul killed Batman. Batman came back to takes the city back from Bane. Yep. He seemed to beat Bane, but Azrael killed Bruce. Seemingly killed Bruce. He's not actually dead.
Well, yeah, because he didn't want to... He's Batman now, so he doesn't want to give it up. So, you know, Bruce gets the sword treatment, and then he takes over, and we don't know what happened to the rest of the Bat family. They're not around, but it seems like Jean-Paul has instituted a theocracy around the Order of Saint Dumas.
Yeah, he's got a wife who kind of acts as his Alfred. And he's older. It's 30 years later. We find out that he's actually got Bruce still alive. Bruce is just a head and a torso with no limbs on like a machine thing. Ooh. And he comes to him every year just to ask him to admit that his way is better, essentially. Mm-hmm. And Bruce, of course, is never going to do that. And the story of this issue is actually there's an uprising from the League of Shadows. We see, League of Assassins. And we see, like this Dumas order. They just behead Penguin and like his lackey.
And it's Cardinal and the Torchbearer, which are two good names. And I was hoping that we'd get reveals. We don't, but Torchbearer definitely feels like a Firefly. Just this flaming sword hooked up to this backpack.
Honestly, the best piece of art in the issue might be after he's done the beheadings. There's a panel of him holding the flaming sword up, and he says, "For Gotham." It's a really good panel.
It's good.
Looks good.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get to that page now.
But yeah, there's explosions around the city, and it turns out that there's this uprising happening. We have this skinny guy who's like, "Oh, you don't know my father," and then he takes Venom, and it's like, "Oh, this is Bane's kid." Shows up, and he comes to rescue Bruce, and it's like, "Hey, we've got a solution for you not having a body. Don't you worry." So they've got like a nanotech body for him, and it's also Bane with like a hoodie on. It's kind of funny to me. He's got like a hood on.
Yeah. Well, and I like that, So his power comes from his dad had taken so much venom that it got into his genetics, and now he's, I don't want to say Hulk-like, but he can turn it on and off.
Yeah, he can naturally Hulk out, essentially.
Huge, yeah. And I like that. And then you find out, too, that it's not just him. He has his mom, and his mom's Lady Shiva, which now, I was hoping for Cass to show up as older sister, but alas.
No, they're here to take Gotham back, so they give Bruce a body, and of course...
Made out of nano stuff that kind of pretty cool. Like, it's almost like a swarm of bats.
Yeah, because we see him kind of flying around later. It's like there's bats around him. It's kind of an interesting image. Yeah. But they come to fight him, obviously. And Azrael's like, "No, Bruce, you're back." Yada yada. And fighting ensues. And what's kind of interesting about this is that Bruce does win. I mean, Bane's son gets his arm ripped off. I just want to point out because he needs a fix of venom, and he knows that venom's inside Bane's son, so he just rips off his arm and then drinks venom from his severed arm.
There's some between the torso of Bruce. In this, there's some pretty effed up stuff in this.
I mean, I guess that's the thing that we're doing this Dark Multiverse one shot is we can do dark shit.
I know that sounds like it sounds like a complaint. It's not a complaint. I'm just making an observation.
Because there's a panel at the end of this where there's just like venom like dripping down his face and his eyes are all lit up and he's like smiling with a big grin. Yeah, that's a great like psychotic looking panel. But yeah, so Batman or Bruce or whatever does what after Bane's son like stabs Azrael and kills him.
And then hits him with the backbreaker, which him minus the arm, that is a feat, man. Like even Roddy Strong couldn't do that, and he's the messiah of the backbreaker.
However, it turns out that Bruce being nothing but a head and a torso for 30 years has turned him into a psychotic maniac. That's probably an oxymoron or redundant or whatever. But he kills Shiva and Bane's son with his bat nanotech things, and then has the same look in his face that Azrael had with the big grinning teeth and the yellow eyes. And we find out that he is so far gone because of this, that this is what it took to break Bruce Wayne, that now he is going to rule like a dictator, just like Azrael was. And what we really need to mention is the wraparound here, where it's Tempest Fuginoid, who's or Fuginaut, sorry, who is, because it's very Crisis. We were seeing all these Earths sort of in a row.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how there's this dark multiverse that he can travel to, and something is stirring. And it's like, this is another failed Earth. This is another failed dark multiverse. There's no hope for this one. But what's really interesting is it says next death of Superman, and it makes me wonder if all these dark multiverse one shots are building to something.
I feel like they are between. So we've had Tempest Fuginaut now, and he popped up in Sideways, right? And Sideways was tied to metal, right? He got his powers from the mountain showing up, and then we learned that he could jump in between dimensions. That's how he comes into Tempest. And there was a whole interlude arc, right? Remember where he teamed up with the Superboy to fight all the Forgotten Heroes? That's kind of, we didn't really know about the dark multiverse. We did, but not really, right? That very much felt like a dark multiverse, in that now Tempest is going through these almost like the Monitor, right? And looking at these Earths that are doomed to die. And you add that into the villain series that's coming up that Tynan's doing with Epting.
Yeah.
And the whole doom and chaos and all of this. I feel like there's a crisis afoot. Like, there's going to be a legitimate crisis coming, because it's been since Final Crisis, if we want to count that one. But as for
it depends if
continuity altering.
It depends if you count Flashpoint, I suppose.
Yeah, that's missing the pieces. That's like a reboot of a Crisis. You know what I mean? we're gonna do the same thing, but we're not gonna have the pieces.
Well, I think what goes along with what you're saying here is that we've been talking about this fifth age, like, because they've split it into these like 4 generations or 4 ages. I feel like given that we're hearing rumors in 2020 of a fifth age, I feel like what sets up a new age but a Crisis, right? It kind of makes sense. So
and Metal was kind of a Crisis, but not really. That almost sets the stage for this now, because we got the Batman Who Laughs running around with the Secret Six.
I don't know how much of this will be that relevant. I don't know if you'll need to have read this for this new thing that happens to make sense. But it is a nice tease, and at least this, and obviously each one's by a different writer, so a different team, so the quality will vary. I thought this one was actually kind of a solid read for what it was.
Yeah, it was. It's, again, I like Higgins. I've never been disappointed by a Higgins book. So I tend to like his stuff more. That's why I want to read his Power Rangers. I'm not, I have them. I have not read them though.
It was a little bit longer. I was obviously, these are the bigger sort of, 40-page books. But it read smoothly enough, and I enjoyed kind of the dark nature. Like, I really liked the arm ripping off and drinking the venom straight from the blood of the arm was so good.
And then he strings up Jean Paul's corpse at the end, the last page.
Yeah.
Across Gotham to be a symbol
on display as a message.
That a broken Bruce that never gets to recover is the worst possible, So, but I like that. I like how he becomes Saint Batman at the end.
I realize this sounds like a parody myself because I'm Scottish, but it made me think of Braveheart a little bit, because at the end of Braveheart, you hear that Edward Longshanks, had William Wallace displayed everywhere, all across the country. It was a warning. That's what it reminded me of. Surprisingly, it was a solid book. Obviously, it'll vary probably based on the writers, but interesting. We've got this like sort of narrator, this voyeur in Tempest Fuginaut, who is going to presumably be there at the start and the end of each issue, kind of watching these. What's he looking for? And is the final one that we get before whatever event or book that it leads into, which I think is going to happen. I think it's leading to something. Maybe not directly. I could see it ending and then in a couple of months, and then we get an announcement of something and find out, hey, that those one shots, they were all kind of like leading into this.
They were seeding the ground, because also Batman Superman with Williamson. So we all know that they're pretty high on Williamson and Tynion. Look at the high profile books they're on.
Yeah.
So if they're working on something together, like they both seem to be leading to the same spot. So I'm here for it. Whatever, even if nothing comes of this, I like that Tempest is that character, almost like a watcher, or a monitor. Like,
I always sound so simple, but just that little thing at the end saying next time Death of Superman, I'm like, you don't usually say that at the end of a one shot. This is interesting. This is them saying, no, these are kind of connected in some loose way, and there might be an end game kind of involved of some kind. If not in the one shots themselves, whatever they're kind of setting up. Not that I necessarily think, again, I don't think there'll be required reading for whatever's going to come from it, but...
So here we go. We're going to jump down Matt's conspiracy hole here.
Oh, God.
Is that the name Tempest Fuginaut, right, goes to Time Flies. So he's he's a traveler. 0 Hour wasn't quite a crisis, right? But it changed things. It altered the time in order to restructure DC at the time. So it almost makes you wonder if this is going to be a type of time crisis. Whereas Crisis was dealing with the multiple Earths and all of this. Well, now we only have 52. We don't have Infinite Earths anymore. But we have Infinite Dark Multiverse. Perpetua, now the creator of the multiverse, has risen to power. So that makes me wonder if... remind me of the bad guy in Metal, the Bat God.
Oh, Barbatos.
Barbatos. Makes me wonder if Barbatos is almost the Perpetua of the Dark Multiverse, right? And now the multiverse has won. Somehow someone's going to create something that brings these dark worlds to life. And that's what, that's going to alter things or whatever. I don't know. But with the name that Tempest Fugit means time flies, and this is the guy now, like, I don't know.
No, so this book was good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the next stuff. I mean, if you're sick of the darker stuff, yeah, okay, this isn't going to help because here's the multiverse. There's Dark Multiverse. Here's arms been ripped off and misery and everything.
I don't feel like this is not synergy at play. I feel like Snyder's plan with you don't bring back the Justice Society in a dark world.
Sure.
Those are shiny, bright, hopeful.
I will tell you, if I have a complaint about anything right now about the line with the Snyder stuff, is just this forced tie-in bullshit with all these other books have to see the symbol in the sky. They have to get the little drone with the offer or whatever. Like all that stuff, I could have done without all that.
Yeah. So this definitely plays into. There's light at the end of the tunnel here.
It's a weird time right now because I don't think what they're building to just now is as good as like the build to Infinite Crisis, but I do feel the cohesive universe build there. There's something going on, which is nice. It's just a question of how much we like it or dislike it, and does it work from a storytelling perspective. I think it's easy to be cynical right now, especially since we're so soon after Heroes in Crisis, and there's a couple of things that are a big problem still. Dick Grayson needs to be fixed. That's for sure. Like that's in a rough place. Wally, of course, coming from Heroes in Crisis, and there's a couple of things that aren't quite there.
But I also feel like they're fixing Harley, right? I feel like she's going to be cohesive for the first time in a while throughout stuff that's going on. Like there's these little seeds. Superman's being not restructured, but re-strengthened, right? He's refortified, I guess is the word, to kind of what he was before the whole New 52 gamble, where they try to make him young because young is more relevant.
Yeah, I mean, when Shazam comes out, that's a bright, hopeful book.
That's a bright, hopeful book. I mean, not right now with King Shazam running around, but hey, we'll get to the end of it.
No, I just I mean, there is a lot of dark stuff in DC, and you know, but at the same time, I can't really shit on it because my favorite book of the last while was Harleen issue 1, which obviously was a dark, mature take on one of the characters, which works for some characters, does not work for others.
No.
But I don't know. There's enough good stuff in here. It's just maybe not necessarily the most obvious main stuff that you maybe hoped it would be at any given time.
Well, and this is proof of the metaverse, is that one, like the state of the world where we are right now, it's looking bleak. It's looking grim across the globe. Like, art's gonna reflect that, you know. And we always need that hopeful stuff. So I feel like Bendis is fighting that with Superman and allowing Superman to do what he needs to do. I mean,
I think that's why Dick hurts so much, because and Wally as well to an extent, is that those characters are so inherently hopeful. But I mean, we've said in the past of the heart and soul of the DCU. So having them be in these miserable plot lines where they're just not themselves, or what, you know, in different ways for each of them, but that kind of is why those hurt so much, because it feels not only they're out of character, they're doing stories that we don't want to see with those characters. Is that those are where I typically look for the hopeful, upbeat kind of, we can do better, we can accomplish things, we can, you know. Batman can be, I mean, I like Batman's story occasionally, don't get me wrong, but Batman can be dark and fits being dark and will probably be dark most of the time. Obviously, not everything they're doing right now is for everyone, but there is definitely, I think, bright spots in there if you want the lighter stuff and the happier, the hopeful stuff, which I do want as well. It's like, I guess, no one was complaining more about everything being just grim and whatever during the New 52 than me. But so Tales from the Dark Multiverse was a solid first outing, I thought. And yeah, as a horror fan, I enjoyed the arm getting ripped off.
and the blood drink.
Yeah. Plus, you know, it's not exactly an Elseworld, but it's Elseworld in the sense that it's a different Earth, and we can do whatever we want here. So, we're giving it. What did you think of the art, actually?
It's fine. It's not.
Fernandez,
Fernandez is okay, but you could definitely tell he was trying to get that style of the mid 90s Batman comics.
Oh sure, especially I did think actually, because the panel where it shows you Bane breaking Batman's back and it was meant to look like that page did a decent job with the coloring and stuff.
Well, and the sharp angles on Batman too. When he becomes Saint Batman at the end, it has it of that period too.
What are you giving Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman KnightFall?
I'm gonna give this one an 8. I like this one.
Yeah, I'll give it a solid 8 too. I thought it was solid.